Welcome back. So far, we've seen built-in modules like random, and we've seen how to import them into our Python files. Now we're going to see how we can create our own custom modules, it's less impressive than it sounds. It's basically just a file with Python code in it that we write that we can require or import in another file. So yes, we can import our own code. The syntax is no different than before. We just import and then the name of the Python file. So whatever the file is named, helper.py, mystuff.py, you're going to reference it by mystuff or helper or whatever the name is. So here's an example. These are representing two separate files. File1.py, not a very good name, has a couple of functions. The first one is called fn, and the second one is called other_fn. Doesn't matter what they do. They don't really do anything except return a string. Then we have file2. And if we wanted to import file1, we just do it like this, import file1. So it needs to be the same name as the Python file. And then under file1, we have access to fn function or other fn, other function. And that's kind of all there is to it. So I'm just going to show an example. I'm going to start by making 3 different files. So the first one I make will just be called bananas.py. So I have a function called peel, and it just returns, here's a delicious banana. And another function called dip in chocolate, which returns, here's a delicious banana dipped in chocolate. And our final function sell, which just returns, there's always money in the banana stand. It's a Arrested Development thing. Then we have another file called apples.py, and I'll open that one up. And there's a single function called offer that returns the string, hey, do you like apples? And then another function called bake that just returns pie. So we have these 2 files. They have nothing to do with one another. Now let's make a third file called fruits.py, and we'll import both of those files as modules. So all we need to do is start off up top with import, and let's start with bananas. And that's the name of the file, remember, bananas.py. So import bananas, and then we'll just start by doing bananas, if I can spell that. Bananas, what do we have in here? Let's do dip in chocolate. And let's print it. Just like that. And let's see what happens. So we're importing it from that file. It does matter, that they're in the same directory. And if they're not, then we need to reference the correct path. So let's try it. Let's do Python 3 fruits. And I didn't execute the function. So we are getting the function, but I'm not actually calling it. There we go. Here's a delicious banana dipped in chocolate. Let's do the same thing with apples. Import apples. And then I'll do an apples.offer, and I'll print that. Try this. Now we get, hey, do you like apples? Here's a delicious banana dipped in chocolate. So we've got 2 separate files, and we have access to all of those functions in each file by importing them. But we could also do, let me copy this and comment the original just to save that. And we could also do something like from bananas, import, and let's say we only want, rather than, well, let's do dip in chocolate, sure, as dip, okay? And that will allow us to just refer to a function called dip. Let's see if it works. Perfect. So here we're kind of combining all that import syntax we saw, where we're using from to specifically call out the functions we want, and we're giving it a name, a much shorter name this time, just dip, as you can see. Cool. So that's the basics of actually creating custom modules and importing them. Let's just quickly talk about why you would do this, when is a good situation to make a module. And we'll discuss this more when we talk about object-oriented programming, making classes. We'll put some classes in their own files, and we'll have to decide when to make something a module versus a class, but we'll get there. But for now, if you find yourself with code that needs to be used in more than one place, put it in a module. But that's not the only reason. If you have a really long file and you have some way that you could group some of the functions or the functionality into a module or put them in a separate file, do that. It doesn't have to be that you're using it in multiple places. It might just be best to group things, this is silly, bananas and apples, but if we had 10 or 20 functions for each, there's no reason to put them all in fruits. Put some in apples that have to do with apples, and put the ones in bananas that have to do with bananas. So it's just a way of organizing.